Order, and substituting for Jackie is me. You've probably already figured out I'm not Jackie. Today's January 11th. Think about this, how weird this winter has been. There hasn't been more than what, an inch of snow, or give or take, at a time down here in Wenatchee anyway. And somebody told me, I don't know anything about weather records, but supposedly this is the latest we've ever gone into a winter without having at least 6 inches total of snow. So it's very, very strange. But on the other hand, nobody has to shovel it, which is a happy thing. Our theme tonight's rights and responsibilities. Surprise, surprise, I was paying attention to the TV news when the endless coverage of the riot in DC happened. And it brings up the question of rights and responsibilities. And I hope, Joyce, that you interpreted this pretty broadly, because that's how I intended it. We'll see how that goes during table topics. But my thought, my inspiration for that was how many people are talking about their rights, and you just don't hear very many people talking about their responsibilities, which seem to me need to counterbalance those rights. But at any rate, we'll find out whether I'm full of it and dead wrong and all of you disagree or not. Now, tonight, let's see, our Toastmaster is going to be Joyce, who is filling in for Steve. So Joyce, take it away.
Yes, I will take it away. Thank you very much, Lloyd. I may not be racing home in my car, but I'll try to be the best Steve I can. I read the theme, our rights and responsibilities, and I decided to consult with my best friend, Google. Google and I have gone back many years. As a matter of fact, my hat goes off to anyone who had graduated from any institution without help of Google. I believe so. I would like to take a look for the joke of the day. Does anyone have a joke for the day?
Yes, I can offer one up.
Oh, yes, please, Dean.
Regrettably, we had yet another tragic death here in the Methow Valley, specifically in Winthrop last week. Apparently, a husband and wife were talking late one evening, and she said, "Has the quarantine made me fat?" And the husband replied, "You were never all that thin." The coroner decided that the cause of death was COVID.
That was beautiful. Let's review program changes. I am the new Steve until the real Steve shows eventually. It looks like we don't have any guests. Therefore, I'm going to introduce myself as general. Wait, that's not.
No.
I'm not general evaluator. Dean's general evaluator. I'm sorry, Dean. Take it away, Dean.
Okay, just need to unmute myself again. I will be evaluating the meeting as a whole and offering any specific comments that come up that I happen to note. And at this point, I'd like to introduce my team, very competent team. The first is Kathleen McNulty, who will be evaluating Vicky's speech. And thank you so much for jumping in at the last minute to evaluate a different speaker. I can imagine that's fairly difficult. So if you could tell us, read the speech objectives and so forth, go ahead.
Thank you. I will be evaluating Vicki Chatterton's speech tonight. I'm assuming it's a 5 to 7 minute speech. Her topic is inspire your audience. With this speech, she is going to inspire us. The content should engage us, be entertaining, or move us emotionally. Her goal is to be aware of our reaction and counter-react to it. She will not be talking at us, but interacting with us. Looking forward to that, Vicki.
Thank you, Kathleen. Next, I'd like to have Lloyd explain the timer duties.
Thank you, Dean. Timing is more important than it might seem in Toastmasters. Every one of us has been afflicted by some kind of a meeting or gathering of some kind where a speaker simply overran his or her timing and caused tremendous disruptions in the schedule of the meeting. Doing speeches to a time limit teaches us to be succinct and say what needs to be said and then stop. And that last one of those is the thing that a lot of people have trouble with. So I will be timing tonight. Vicky's speech is 5 to 7. At 5, she'll see this professionally prepared timing card. At 6, the yellow. And at 7, the red. Similarly, the green, yellow, and red, let's see, for our evaluation, that'll be 2 to 3 minutes, 2 green, 2.5 yellow, 3 red. And table topics 1 to 2, 1.5 green, one minute green, 1.5 yellow, and 2 minutes red. And then I got the evaluation, didn't I? Good enough. I'm going to stop talking now because things are getting worse as I go. Dean, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Lloyd. Next, I'd like to introduce Rob Tidd, who is our grammarian, and he will give us the word of the day as well as give us a brief overview of his other duties. Rob.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. My role this evening is to recognize exceptional use of words and phrases in the English language. At the same time, I may point out less than favorable uses of words and phrases in the English language. Coupled with that, I would like to present to you the word of the day. If this works, you will find the word in the chat box. The word is not unfamiliar to us. However, it may be a word that is not often used. The word is plethora. Plethora is a noun to mean a large or excessive amount of something, such as a plethora of committees and subcommittees. I would encourage you not to use the second definition of the word plethora. Let's try and keep bodily fluids out of tonight's meeting. And I will report at the end of the meeting on my findings. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob. And last but not least is our counter, Pat Whitfield. Please say a few words about what you'll be doing.
Thank you, Dean. My role is to be the resident nitpicker. I'll be looking to see that the language flows without a plethora of interruptions such as well, so, but repeating of things so that we have a mellifluous evening of speeches. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. With that plethora of wisdom and instruction, I will return the meeting to Joyce, stand-in Toastmaster.
Thank you. I am going to introduce Vicky. Unfortunately, I don't have any of the information, so I'm going to go with the good old line. This speaker needs no introduction, Vicky Chatterton.
Thank you, Joyce. My fellow Toastmasters. It's January, and we all know what that means. We've reflected in December of our past year, and now we want to focus on what is going to happen in this upcoming year. Now, if you're like me, you were excited for January 1st and it becoming 2021. Now, if you were a Toastmaster last year in January and were at the meeting, I talked about my word of the day. It is my word of the year, not the day. It is something that I have done for the past few years. It's become a trending thing where you choose a word and then you think about it throughout the year. And it's just so that you can be focused on something. And last year, I chose the word collaborate because I thought that in 2020, this was going to be the year. We were going to have so much happening. I had all sorts of speaking dates and trainings that were going to be live in person in January booked. It was going to be exciting. And I was looking forward to collaborating with people that I met and networking and just becoming more outgoing and working within my sphere of friends and working with them rather than just being cohorts, but also doing more. And then everything happened, and I wasn't going to the trainings, and I wasn't doing my speaking engagements. And I had to think, is this going to happen? Am I going to be able to collaborate? And when I looked back into December, I realized I had done a lot of collaborating. I went into a business with a bunch of my fellow Train the Trainer cohorts, and we have been doing that. They switched to online trainings, and I became an integral part in one of them. And so I was collaborating on the online trainings. I feel as though with Toastmasters, I was collaborating with the other trio members in figuring out how we were going to get this to work, and our other clubs, how we were going to do this. And so the word wove in through my life throughout the year. And I found it interesting that the word that I chose manifested into something that was true. January is coming. It's December 30th, and I'm trying to decide what my word is going to be for 2021. And I'm reading words. There's a plethora of words, millions of words, and nothing was resonating. I would read lists because this is a thing that a lot of people are doing now of picking a word. In my sphere, we're like, what is the word of what's your word? And so everybody's posting words on Facebook, peace, grace, enthusiasm. We chose a word for Toastmasters of reignite. We're doing a reignite marketing campaign. If you've heard of it, if you're a club officer, you might have heard of it already. Our conference for Toastmasters is reignite. And I like that, but it just didn't resonate for my personal word. And I'm reading and I'm reading. And finally, the word release came up. And it just is one of those things when you know it's right, it's right. It gave me goosebumps because I realized that there is a lot of things that I need to release this year. The trauma of losing my husband, some of it I haven't dealt with. I haven't released all of those feelings and gone through the whole grief process and gone through that. I need to release those. I have limiting beliefs that have been stopping me from doing what I want to do. I need to release those limiting beliefs. Well, COVID did a lot of eating, so I've decided to release some weight. And the reason I'm releasing it, because if you lose weight, you're going to find it. And I don't want to find it again. I want to release it. It's gone. No more. This word has really resonated with me, and I'm looking forward to watching this journey. I plan on not only remembering the word throughout the year, but intricately taking time to focus on it at least once a week and to see what I have released. I've joined a program where monthly we talk about our word of the year and how it is impacting and how it's weaving throughout. Because I believe if I focus on this, it will manifest better things. My limiting beliefs, I'll be able to release more quickly. perhaps my weight I'll be able to release more quickly, because it has been said, what you focus on is what you get. Have you ever met people that are always in a negative mood and they're always thinking bad thoughts, and then you look at their lives and yeah, their marriage is terrible, things aren't going right. But if you think positive thoughts and you have these people that are really upbeat all the time and joyful, and you know that one of their words must be joy, you can see that. And I'm just looking forward to going through this journey. And so I hope that you just take a few minutes this evening or in the next couple days and think, if I were to choose a word for the year, what would it be? And if you do, let me know, and I'll check in with you throughout the year and see how yours is going and share how I'm doing. Madam Toastmaster.
That was wonderful. My word is patience. Lloyd, may we have 1 minute on the clock, please?
Certainly, Madam Toastmaster. That's 1 minute.
Thank you very much. Everyone, wrap up your thoughts, send them to Vicky. And in the meantime, I'm going to change hats. I'm going to introduce myself as the table topics master, and I will explain the purpose and to conduct table topics. Topics is a place and time for us to be able to have a turn to speak if we don't have a speaking role, which tonight everyone has something to do, don't we? But in the meantime, I got to thinking about our rights and responsibilities. I didn't overthink it. Don't worry, Lloyd. I never overthink things. I'm Generation X. I may overthink my own personal life, but when it comes to themes, we won't go there. I have in my possession 3 pages of quotes, and I am going to read one at random, hopefully by someone whose name I can pronounce. If I mispronounce, I apologize in advance. And then I'm going to pick a person and they can tell me what they think, if they agree with the quote, if they disagree with the quote, or what they think it means. I am going to pick the first quote and I'm going to read it. Then I will pick a speaker. We, the people, recognize that we have responsibilities as well as rights, that our destinies are bound together, that a freedom which only asks what's in it for me, a freedom without a commitment to others, a freedom without love or charity or duty or patriotism is unworthy of our founding ideals and those who died in their defense. That was said by Barack Obama. Kathleen, what do you think about that?
You challenged me with a very long quote, so I'm going to just go with the gist of it. What I think about that quote is that I'm honing in primarily on rights and responsibilities. I would add another word to it that I think is in there. We could use a plethora of empathy in our world today. We perhaps are even taking our responsibilities too far in feeling that as individuals, because we have not achieved what our personal goals are politically, that we can then take matters into our own hands. That is perhaps taking your responsibility too far, or your rights too far. Before going that far, I would suggest that one, pull back a little bit and think about what the other person might be thinking and feeling, in particular, if you disagree with them. I have tried this exercise fairly often recently because there's a lot to disagree with. It's been enlightening. It helps keep me calmer. It helps me reflect on what other people might be thinking and doing and why they might be doing something. There are some places where I still have to draw the line. You know, riots would be one of them. People feel very, very strongly. That's why they're taking these actions. If we don't agree with them, we must get a better understanding of what their needs really are. They have some needs and they're trying to clarify them for us. We have to figure out what they are and try to fulfill them. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Very good. I knew you could handle that. That was a very good speech, Kathleen. To renounce liberty is to renounce being a man, to surrender the rights of humanity and even its duties. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. What do you think about that, Dean?
Could you read that again?
Yes, of course. To renounce liberty is to renounce being a man, to surrender the rights of humanity and even its duties. I can move to
Okay.
another one.
That one had to have you read that again because I couldn't quite understand the gist of it, and I'm still not sure I do.
Oh, that means if you renounce liberty, you pretty much aren't being the full aspect of human. You have your liberties, your freedoms. So you'd be like a caged animal, I believe.
See. Okay. Well, I think that as the theme of our meeting is that you have responsibilities and rights. I think you have, along with liberty, you also have responsibilities. And I think about this a lot because we have neighbors and there's things up here in the valley that people don't get along on. And one person's liberty is another person's intrusion or being offended by it. In particular, I'm working on a dark sky initiative to try and get people to use their lights responsibly, because too many folks want to move out here to our wonderful natural dark valley and put up big street lights. And it's called light pollution. I don't care if they put them on their property, but as soon as that light goes over the property line, then it's pollution. As soon as I don't care if they have dogs, I love dogs, but as soon as their dogs bark all night and keep me awake, that's noise pollution. So along with liberty has to come the recognition that we all have responsibilities, and think about your fellow human being while you exercise those liberties, and wear a mask so you don't give us all COVID. Back to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you. You did very well. Rights and duties sounded more entertaining than duties and rights. Till the better. Let me read that one more time. Rights and duties sounded more entertaining than duties and rights, meaning that the rights come first instead of the duties. What do you think of that, Rob?
Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. I don't know if I agree with that, because I have a feeling that many people in our society feel that they have unlimited rights. And because of that, they have limited duties. I feel that people have to balance both. You can't enforce your personal rights to the detriment of other people. As a Rotarian, we follow a four-way test. And as part of that four-way test, one of the things that we follow is we determine whether or not is it beneficial for all concerned. If I were to do things that infringed on other people's rights, that would be wrong. And I follow that mantra every day of my life because it is more important to uphold the rights of the greater good than it is to try and force the private rights of the few. That's my position, and I'm sticking to it. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Very good. You bring up some very good points. Let me take a look at, we're going to do a Mahatma Gandhi quote. If we all discharge our duties, rights will not be far to seek. What do you think of that, Vicky?
May I have you repeat that one more time, please?
Of course. If we all discharge our duties, rights will not be far to seek.
Okay. I'm going to interchange the word duties with responsibilities.
Yes.
And I think that if we are giving up our responsibilities, then, or not, I guess not taking responsibilities, then there's going to be people that feel as though these rights are entitled to, but they're having a difficult time with it. I really think that with the theme that Lloyd picked, and he was right, that a lot of people are focusing on their rights and what they're entitled to and everything like that. And they need to take a step inside and think of the responsibilities of those rights, because I think that they're taking them for granted. And I know that sometimes I will think of a right and take it granted. And I really enjoyed Dean's information about light pollution and noise pollution, because sometimes we don't think that it's infringing upon somebody else and how that's impacting them. And I really enjoy this topic. It's making me think, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Vicky. I have a quote from Jimmy Carter. America did not invent human rights. And let me start that over. America did not invent human rights. In a very real sense, human rights invented America. What do you think of that, Patricia?
I really like that perspective, that human rights invented America. When you think of the people that lived here back in the very beginning, who wanted their freedom from Britain, they felt that their rights were being infringed upon. They felt that they were being suppressed by the British Empire. They felt that they were being limited in their initiative, in what they could create, what they could do as they formed the various communities that made early America. Therefore, that's a huge motivator for creating a nation that values human rights, that values what it is that people want fairly and justly to do, and not to have it limited by some supreme power that's using military and other ways, other methods of keeping them from being as rich and full in the lives that they could have to contribute to the knowledge, to the progress of the world. I like what Jimmy said. Good old Georgia farmer that he is.
That's right. He was a peanut farmer, wasn't he? Oh. Rob, do you have your timing stuff on hand? He's going to get the timing stuff because Lloyd, I have a quote for you. I'm going to wait until he is ready. You ready? Fantastic. Marrying means to have one's rights and double one's duties. This was told by one Arthur Schopenhauer. What do you think of that?
Whoa, Schopenhauer. He wasn't what you'd call a cheery guy, generally speaking, but he was probably right about that. To have, that's have like cut in half, not have like get hold of. But anyway, marriage is a weird thing. I was married for just under 47 years by the time my wife died. And a lot of people say, wow, how have you stayed married that long? Well, it's because of that balance between what you want and what you can have. And I think that's where a lot of people run aground in their marriages, is that they confuse what they want with what they can have. And it's nice if those two things correspond, but in all things in life, they rarely do correspond exactly. And so knowing when to give is really important. The reason I'm thinking about this, and I'm kind of muddling around in it, is just the other day, a former student of mine who was married to another former student of mine said that they were getting a divorce. They've been married about 6 or 7 years, I guess. And I was thinking, and I told him, I said, 6 or 7 years may not be enough time to understand whether this is going to work out. And he said, what do you mean? That's forever. I said, no, it's not. It's not anywhere close to forever. In fact, and something with that commitment, they have a little kid. And I said, you're not the only one here, buddy. And so maybe you ought to think about what you're doing. I think in this case, Schopenhauer was right. There are very few things that he said that I agree with. I'd never heard that particular quotation, but that is one. If you ever get a chance, by the way, do not read one of Schopenhauer's books unless you're having a lot of trouble sleeping. That might be one illustration of that. Anyway, good quotation. Thank you very much, Joyce.
Thank you. As I recall, you told a story about a sports car that you wanted, and you had to relegate to, I believe it was a minivan, or was that sports?
A regular car. That was my last year's international speech, which I've now discarded because I don't think it's very good compared to the one I've recently written. But anyway, yeah.
That always stuck with me. As I recall, I got you a miniature car to trade into the car dealership.
Yeah, a little red sports car.
Yes. I believe, have I pretty much questioned everyone? And 6:08. Shall I turn it back over to myself?
Sure.
I will turn it back over to me, the Toastmaster, who will reintroduce our general evaluator, Dean.
Okay, thank you, Joyce. The first part of our evaluation portion of our meeting will be to have Kathleen evaluate Vicki Chatterton's speech. Take it away. Unmute.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I'm delighted to be able to evaluate Vicki's speech. I'll be giving my opinion on this speech. My first opinion is I really enjoyed it. Vicki's goals were to inspire us, and one of them is to move us emotionally. I felt like she achieved both of those goals. I really liked, Vicki, that you started out by setting the stage. You took us back to last year. You reminded us of this practice you have of selecting a word, and you reminded us of what the word was. You created our baseline. Then you took us on an emotional roller coaster. You talked about collaboration, and you had envisioned collaboration to be a certain way in 2020. Nothing in 2020 was as we expected. It sounded like you were a little disappointed, but you turned the corner and became excited and found that you were collaborating all over the place. Your role in Toastmasters, the whole Zoom thing, you've been a great leader for us. You have been a true collaborator. As you're describing it, I could feel that emotion, that disappointment, and then that excitement. Then you went on to talk about your selection of the word for this year. And again, it was emotional. You talked about how frustrating it was to try and come up with a word, and you tried several words. They didn't really seem to fit. You finally came upon this word, and the word was release. You knew that you had it because it gave you goosebumps. That was a really great way to convey the excitement of that moment. And I could feel that for you and with you, how exciting it was that you came upon that. It got even better then, in my opinion, because you talked about what you were going to release. You were going to release these limiting beliefs. We could all use that and relate to that. You were going to release weight. You were going to release grief and fear. You really made me feel what you were feeling, and I enjoyed that. You ended talking about, and you said, what you focus on is what you get. Positive thoughts will get you what you focus on. Again, I was very inspired by that. I'll have to tell you later about a podcast that I just listened to about delight and how we find delight in life and how we have to basically work at it. I think that's what you are doing, Vicki, is you are working at achieving a positive outlook. And part of the way you do it is through these words. I really enjoyed you sharing that with us. Very emotional, very inspiring. If I were going to suggest a couple of things, fewer filler words, something that we can all work on, perhaps standing up a little more in terms of gestures. Your eye contact was great, though. Overall, I really enjoyed it, especially for you to step in at the last minute like this. Thank you very much, Vicki.
Thank you, Kathleen. Very nice and complete evaluation. The next part of our evaluation portion is to hear from our timer, Lloyd Smith.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Vicki, your speech came in at 6:41. For table topics, Kathleen 209, Dean 129, Rob 130, Vicki 128, Pat 129, I was 157. And Kathleen, your evaluation was 340. Back to you, Dean.
Thank you. Next part of the evaluation is to hear from Rob with the grammarian's report and use of the word of the day. Rob.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I was impressed by the use of certain words this evening. Pat started off with a word that I wasn't quite sure of, but I think the word was mellifluous, which is not an easy word to use, but she used it quite well and used it appropriately. So I was very much impressed. Dean, you used a term I'd never heard before. I don't think you created it, but Dark Sky Initiative certainly drew a picture in my mind of what you were talking about. I thought that was very interesting. Vicki, you used a couple of words and a phrase that I thought was very interesting. You used manifested and resonating. Those words have got so much substance to them, and you use them very well in your speech. And limiting beliefs, that resonated with me because I know people who have those same beliefs, and I tend to stay away from people like that. The word of the day was used a number of times. I would have liked to see it used more often by more people. But Pat, you used it once. Dean, you used it once. Vicki, you used it once. And Kathleen used it with a little slight emphasis on a different consonant. But I don't think that is inappropriate. It certainly got my attention. So thank you all for using the word of the day. And that is my report, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rob. The next part of the evaluation is to hear from our ah counter. Pat, please let us know how many ahs and fillers we had.
I have to say there's one filler that was overused. There was a plethora of the use of that particular word. The word was and. So going down my list here, Rob, one but and one and. Dean, one well, one so, and three ands. Kathleen, two ands. Joyce was clean. Lloyd, one well, one but, two you knows. Vicki, two ums, one well, two nows, 11 ands, and two you knows. So it wasn't quite as mellifluous as I had hoped, but still was interesting.
Okay, thank you, Pat. And I'll conclude the evaluation portion of the meeting with a few comments and some feedback. Kudos to everyone who stepped up to replace members that couldn't make it. That includes Joyce with being Toastmaster, Vicki with a speech, which is really pretty difficult, and Kathleen with a great evaluation. Lloyd, I appreciated your observation that that's one of the things that Toastmasters teaches us. I'd never really thought about that. I've been in Toastmasters on and off for almost 40 years. And even though I now realize Toastmasters has helped me to deal with uncertainties in meetings, I just never really thought about that. So thank you for that observation, putting practice into words, I guess. Joyce, your introduction was pretty good, given that you had no information to introduce a speaker. You just said, this speaker needs no introduction. That's a great way to cover for a lack of information. I liked your table topics. Those were very challenging and also educational. I remember a few years ago, I tried the same thing and offered up quotes out of my daily planner at the time. And as I recall, members really struggled with it because that is pretty hard. You have to understand, think and listen and understand what the point of the quote is. At the same time, you're trying to think of what you're going to say. So that was remarkably challenging, but also educational. So great job on that. Kathleen, I thought you had a great evaluation that mentioned many positives. I kept waiting for you to say anything that Vicki could have improved, and you had a few things, but quite frankly, it was a great speech and I couldn't think of a whole lot of improvements either. So wonderful speech, especially on short notice. And Rob and Pat, you did a very thorough job in your roles. Rob picking up numerous examples of good grammar, and Pat, you are probably the most thorough counter that we have in the club. Good job on that.
I have to make a comment. If you noticed, I kept moving. You wondered what the heck is wrong with her? My little dog wants to play and she's very persistent. She kept bringing her little toy and squeaking it at me and putting her paws up on me and stay away, honey. So it was kind of hard to track. Thank you.
Well, I didn't notice because I was trying not to say any ahs, so's, or ands. How's that? Let's see, back to the president, Lloyd, or the stand-in president.
Yes. A lot of, a bit of Toastmaster trivia. This information plus $3 will get you a cup of coffee somewhere. But you know how the list of officers goes down the side of the agenda? That's actually a list of precedents of officers. So like when somebody is absent, you work your way down the list. It's not just a random thing, in other words. But in any event, that has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. I was looking at our club roster online yesterday or the day before, and we're in an interesting position right now, and we have a chance to do something good. One of them is, well, we have sort of qualified as a select distinguished club this year, meaning we've reached, I think it's 8 of the 9 goals. We have to have, or 8 of the 10. We have to have 9 to be president's distinguished, which this club has done, I think it's 9 times in 11 years. It's an unusually capable group. The problem is with membership. In order to qualify for the Distinguished Club program, you have to either be above 20 members or gain 5 on your previous year's base if it was below 20. Now we are at 15 right now. So since our last year's base was 20, we have to get to 20. Now we have time to do that. We have to till the end of June do it. Our 15 people include 3 or 4 members who are kind of in a fuzzy twilight zone. And Eric and I are attempting to find out whether they intend to stay in the group or not. It's pretty obvious we're going to be online for a while. In fact, most of the world is likely to be online for a while. And that is something you might want to think about. The best way to attract people to a club is a face-to-face invitation. You know, it's really easy to walk by a poster or a billboard or whatever and ignore it, or say, well, I should do that sometime, and then not do it. It's a lot harder when you're confronted by a friend or coworker or family member say, do you want to come to this meeting on Monday evening? I think you might like it. Harder to say no. So one of the selling points, the obvious one is the public speaking, but one of the other selling points that people don't think about very much is getting experience with Zoom, because a large number of jobs out in the world right now are becoming dependent on being able to do well in Zoom conversations. And as we all know, there are some people who are a lot better at it than others. And so it's one of the selling points to try to go for. But try to think of some family members, some friends, some coworkers especially, who you think might benefit from Toastmasters or might enjoy it, or one hopes both, and see if you can get somebody to attend a meeting. Our percentage of guests who join is actually pretty good. If we can get people to us, generally they like it. The trick is to get them to us, and that's where all of us have to come in. So time to climb down from the soapbox. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the group?
Just thank you for reminding me, Lloyd. I keep forgetting to send your agenda over to Tammy, so I will put a sticky note up now to see if I can remember to do that and get her to another meeting.
Yeah. A more minor thing is when we have a situation like we had tonight where our one and only speaker got sick. Okay, she let me know in advance, but it was too close to the meeting to actually do much about it. And luckily, Vicki stepped in with a speech. Thank you very much for that, Vicki. You will find, and I think Dean would agree with this too, having been a member for a long, long time, you get to the point where you can come up with something if you really need to. And fortunately for us, that worked out tonight. But there's something called a pocket speech in Toastmasters. And what that is a speech that you've got sort of ready to go pretty much, and it's in a sense in your pocket. That is, you don't schedule it as a speech, but when the need comes up at a meeting, you can do that speech. So, if you have one that you're working on that maybe is sort of ready, maybe not, that might serve as a pocket speech. So keep that in mind, because it does really create a problem. The person it creates the problem for is somebody you don't think about. That's the table topics master. Think about this. If there's no speaker, that poor devil has to come up with like 45 minutes worth of questions. That is not easy. Trust me on that. You know, so in any event, I thought we did pretty well tonight. We got the meeting in, got everything done. It had all the elements on the agenda. So if there are no other comments or questions, meeting
Are we
adjourned.
going to vote on best speaker?
Oh,
And
I-
also, are we going to meet next week? Next week is President's Day.
oh, typically, oh, you're right. Yep.
Excuse me, Martin Luther King Day on Monday.
Yeah. Typically, we do not meet on federal holidays. We've tried that a couple of times, had extremely low attendance. So if everyone is agreeable to that, no meeting next week, okay? Okay. Speaker of the meeting, let's send those to Rob.
Lloyd, may I ask a question while you're doing that?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've been struggling with what to do a speech on. I have a question. Is it permissible to basically take a speech written by someone else and present that speech or present that idea as long as you disclose that, or is that totally not permitted?
You know, you're kind of asking about copyright in a way.
Yeah.
You can't copyright an idea. Okay, if you could, there would only be about 6 books in the world. I mean, seriously, there aren't that many plots, but you can copyright words and phrases and whatnot. So what I'm getting at is that the idea, that's open season. I mean, everybody does that, but the specific words or phrases or the organizational scheme, that should be your own. Does that clear it up, kind of?
Yes, it means I still have to figure out a speech, but
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
mean,
it
you know,
also-
if you like JFK's inaugural address, you really should not just paraphrase that and give it as a speech in the club. For one thing, people recognize it. If you're going to cheat when you're not going to get caught.
Right. And also, Kathleen, it depends on whose speech it is as to how much you can share.
Yeah,
You know, if it's Tony Robbins and I want to talk about motivation, it's limited what I can say that he says. Whereas when I joined the Train the Trainer program for Stay with Jack Canfield, because I am trained by him, I'm allowed to use his scripts. So
Yeah.
one of the speeches that I did about the feedback is completely his words, not my words, because we're practicing getting the concept down and then making it your own. So, you know.
Okay.
for contest speeches. Now, we're not bound by the contest rules for club speeches, but in contest speeches, there's actually a rule about that. You're not allowed to use more than 20% of your speech as quoted or borrowed material, and it's mandatory to cite the source. So, you know, so in other words, you can use quotations from people to support your ideas and whatnot, but to use their ideas without attributing them to the person is definitely a no-no. This, by the way, is one of the most difficult things to try to teach the students in research writing, is that just because you find something online or in a book, that doesn't mean you can just take a chunk of it and stick it in your own paper.
Yeah.
That's a good way to flunk a class or even get kicked out of a college if you get caught doing it. Or used to be anyway. Colleges had honor codes at one time, not so much now. Yeah.
So Kathleen, if you ever want to talk about my best friends,
I can feel
And,
that.
you can certainly do that.
Okay, did we answer your question, Kathleen?
Yes, and in fact, I have a couple of ideas while we were talking.
Good.
Something will gel.
Remember, all speeches in Toastmasters are content neutral. In other words, you can talk about pretty much anything you want. The assignments describe the type of speech you should
Right.
give or the purpose or something, but not the content.
And
So-
then it's voice modulation is the purpose. And I
Oh.
think that it takes you need to be telling a story or something to really demonstrate voice modulation. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm struggling a little bit, but I'll
Yeah,
figure it out.
It'd be pretty hard to talk about, you know, theoretical chemistry or something and have a lot of vocal expression. You know? Okay, meeting adjourned. See you guys in 2 weeks then.
Mr. President.
Oh, yep.
Oh, vote.
Yes,
Rob.
we have a clean sweep. The only reason she didn't get all the votes tonight is because she did not vote for herself. But tonight's winner is Vicky Chatterton. Congratulations, Vicky.
Thank you.
Okay, now meeting adjourned. Thank you, Rob.
Bye,
you.
guys.
All
Bye,
right,
everyone.
Lloyd, if you can just stay
Yeah.
on